Hello everyone and welcome back to the MN Homestead. Today's video is all about chaga. Chaga is a really neat fungus that grows on birch trees. You may not notice it a whole lot when you're wandering through the forest. It's not necessarily always at eye level. You may see it way up, and it's very unique. First of all, it looks nothing like what you consider a typical fungus or mushroom or whatnot. But it's anywhere from a smallish ball, and they can actually get huge. It's this huge growth on the side of the trunk of the birch tree. It looks almost like the tree has been burned. I don't know how well you can see this here. I might bring this over a little bit closer. But it's got this kind of burnt looking on the outside, and then on the inside it's this kind of a yellowish orange. So it's kind of interesting to harvest it. It's very, very hard, and actually to get it off the tree you typically need a hatchet, an axe, or maybe even a saw. So it's a unique experience. You only harvest it in the winter, so I will definitely share a video this winter showing how that very unique process goes. One of the things that is so unique about chaga is you need to harvest it in the winter because it is full of all kinds of great nutrients and things like that. It does suck the life out of the tree. So you harvest it in the wintertime when the tree is dormant. So all of those nutrients and everything are kind of all sucked up in there in the chaga. When you harvest it earlier, maybe in the spring or the summer, it doesn't have as many of those nutrients and things. It's much more water dense. So you want to wait until a couple of weeks after the first frost and harvest it. As I mentioned, it does suck the nutrients from the tree, so chaga will eventually kill the birch that it's living on, but it does take maybe 15, 20 years. So why is it so interesting? Besides the fact that it just looks really nifty and totally unique, I did mention that it takes all kinds of great nutrients and things. This is referred to by some people as a superfood. It has tons and tons of different vitamins and minerals. It's got everything from potassium and iron to B vitamins and everything else along those lines. It has a lot of fiber in it, which is really healthy for digestion and things like that. It can also lower a lot of things such as blood sugar, bad cholesterol, blood pressure, and things like that. And its main draw for a lot of people is that it does supposedly have some anti-cancer properties. There have been several studies over the years, which I won't actually cite or anything, but that have shown that can actually slow the growth of certain kinds of cancers and can actually make some cancer cells attack themselves and implode. And the cool thing is, unlike chemo, that doesn't kill any or harm any of the healthy cells. Now, most of this is unproven because it's hard to harvest chaga. There's something called a turkey tail mushroom that is purported to have a lot of the same properties, and since that is somewhat easy to grow, there are a lot more studies and things on that. Chaga, you have to wait until this big birch tree grows up. You have to let it get on there and grow big enough. So it's not easy to replicate this in like a lab scenario. So there aren't as many tests on it, but this has been known as a very, very healthy substance for many, many years. So aside from all those great properties, additionally, antioxidants, all those other things that can help you, what do you do with it? So interestingly, chaga is typically taken as a tea. You will hear people refer to it as having a dark chocolate taste and things like that. In my opinion, they are full of crap. It does not taste great, but it has wonderful properties, and it's not awful by any means. It just has a very, very deep taste. If you're a fan of lagers and dark beers and things, you actually will probably enjoy it. It definitely has some of that earthy hardiness to it. So how to make this into tea? As I mentioned, I just have a very small bit here. I've been doing this throughout the seasons since I harvested last winter, but I also mentioned that it is really, really hard. So how do you break it up to get it into a more reasonable way to make tea? I take a nice little cloth and I wrap my chaga up in it. And the really scientific portion comes in right now. Got my hammer. I'm not going to bash this up too much right now because I do have some that's already down into a more of a powdered fashion, but took me 3 chunks, but now we've actually gotten it broken up a little bit into some slightly smaller chunks. So what I do from there is I take it and I get it down to not a really fine powder. I get it down to some smallest chunks and just a little bit of that kind of fine powder dust. What I do then is I take, if I'm making a large batch, which I typically do, I take a 1/4 cup of that chaga grind, and then I put it into 12 cups of boiling water. As I mentioned, I'm not a huge fan of the taste, so I actually make a really, really concentrated tea so that I can just take a quick little, for lack of a better word, shot before I head off to work or homesteading or whatnot in the mornings. So I will take that 12 cups of water and I let my chaga boil from anywhere from 4 to 8 hours. Typically, I'll get that 12 cups of water down to just 3 or 4. It's very, very ultra concentrated. And so I will pour that off into a cup and I pop it into the fridge, and I don't know how long it's supposed to be good for. I leave it in there for quite a while, I mean a month or a month and a half, depending on how long it takes me to drink it. So this is a great thing that makes me feel really good about being healthy. Something that I add onto this is I take some local raw honey, and when I'm first taking the chaga off of the stove, I will stir that honey right in there. As I mentioned, I like to take it really quick as I'm running out the door in the morning, so I just take a quick shot of it cold, and I really prefer it when it's flavored up with honey or maybe even some cinnamon, but honey is not going to mix well into it when it's cold, so I pop it right off the stove, stir that honey in, and then throw it in the fridge. So it's a great way to start my mornings. It's nice and healthy, got the great healthy properties of the chaga, then I've got that raw honey as well, and I also take a handful of frozen blueberries and throw them in my mouth aside from my breakfast. So that's my healthy way of starting my day every day. I hope you learned a little bit about chaga. I think it is a phenomenal, phenomenal thing. You can buy it online. I would always be cautious about that. You don't know for sure where it was harvested from. You don't know if it's actually, super high quality or whatnot. So if you do happen to have some, great luck like we do and having this wonderful place around us where you can find some chaga, I'd really encourage you to check it out yourself. And I will, as always, remind you of the extreme importance of sustainable harvesting. Chaga takes a long time to regenerate and to grow, and remember, it's also taking the life of the tree. So you never ever want to take more than is reasonable. You always want to leave at least 20% of the chaga behind on the tree so that it can continue to regenerate itself. You probably not want to harvest from that one from the next year, maybe 2 years, because it'll take itself a long time to grow back. So be sustainable in everything you do when you're harvesting chaga, other wild mushrooms, wild ramps, fiddleheads, fish, everything you're doing. Please be sustainable and take care of our world. So I hope you enjoyed a little bit about chaga, and make sure you check out our blog, themnhomestead.com. Follow us on Instagram where you get daily updates on all the fun we have going on. And also don't forget to hit that little subscribe button down below. And next to that, there's a little bell icon. If you hit that, you get a notification every single time we post a new video. Thank you for coming up and joining us to learn about chaga. We'll see you next time at the MN Homestead.